seeing, huge usage over the weekends when we're not there. To be able to see, hey, they've pressed that button, they need to order it in real time is giving us a chance to get to the leadership and say, hey, we're seeing these trends even when we're not there. We're being able to order it for you when we're not on site, that kind of deal.
Without supplies, there's no surgery. Without products, there's no patient care. Welcome to Power Supply, the healthcare supply chain podcast focused on helping you navigate the intricacies of logistics, purchasing, contracting, and supplier relationships. Each episode, we speak with healthcare executives, supply chain leaders, and innovative entrepreneurs from across the country as they share their stories, experience, and expertise on the industry we love. From the loading dock to strategic sourcing, from buyers to the C-suite, and across the enterprise, we tackle the real-life issues impacting the healthcare supply chain. Whether you're tuning in for conversation or inspiration, we're glad you're here. You're just in time to hear it from the source and stock up on insight. So sit back and plug into Power Supply.
On this episode of Power Supply, Alex VandenBroek, Supply Chain Operations Manager at MultiCare, Guy Russell, Director of Product Development at VUEMED, is going to be joining us to talk about ways to leverage technology, create some efficiencies, and bring those to the non-acute locations, specifically around areas of logistics we'll be talking about today. But, we've expanded out into the community. There's urgent care centers. There's emergency rooms that are freestanding. And, our ability, or the opportunity, I should say, to impact efficiencies in those areas, especially around product delivery at a time when, disruption with back orders, et cetera, couldn't be higher. Well, this conversation's for you. How do you deploy your human resources more efficiently to just continue to expand strategy, find savings opportunities, reduce stockouts, et cetera? That's all in today's episode, Hayes.
Absolutely. We're going to be talking about reducing driving, Penn State University's football team, and blinking bins. So you better hang on and come on and enjoy us today.
Blinking bins. That's a good buzzword. All right.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Alex and Guy Russell, stay with us.
Bam! I'm Hayes Walder.
This is Gary Skinner.
And I'm Justin Poulin.
From the studios of Healthcare HQ, you're listening to Power Supply.
Welcome to Power Supply, everyone. We are speaking with Alex VandenBroek, Supply Chain Operations Manager at MultiCare, along with Guy Russell, Director of Product Development at VUEMED, and we're going to be telling another success story in collaboration, identifying ways to leverage technology and create efficiency, specifically in the area of non-acute logistics. And so, Alex, we're very interested to hear your story today, and Guy, obviously, can't highlight a collaboration and a partnership without having both sides of the table represented. So we're excited to have you as well. But Alex, why don't we start with you and just tell us a little bit about your background and your role at MultiCare?
Yep, sure. My background actually is a hospitality background. I graduated from Penn State with a hospitality degree, huge passion with customer service. So that led me into working with restaurants. Within restaurants, I got into the supply logistics of it and also inventory control. From there, moved into grocery, same thing, moved into healthcare with MultiCare. From there, crazily enough, went from working in nutrition at MultiCare. And then at the height of COVID, I was like, let's join supply chain. So I was fortunate enough to be able to join the MultiCare supply chain team and just work my way from acute to non-acute and just been there for 7 years now. So.
All right, Hayes, you're the college football guy. How do you feel
I knew it was coming up.
How do you feel about those Nittany Lions? Like, it's right in my backyard. I'm only a couple of hours from State College, but just wanted to get a little heat check on Hayes with the team.
I'm fine with the lines. I think they do a good job. They have a big whiteout. They think it's a pretty big deal up there. I mean, they show up every year and lose a bunch of really important games. I mean, otherwise, they're a great team.
So wrong, Alex.
Yes. Lots of tradition there. Lots of tradition.
I mean, tradition of having high, really good recruiting classes, a lot of attendance, and they always fall short. That's what I love about Penn State.
Consistency.
And my team would do the exact same thing.
All right, Guy, welcome to the podcast. I think this is also your first appearance on the show. Talk a little bit about your role and your background as well, if you don't mind.
So I'm a software developer at VUEMED. VUEMED is dedicated to inventory control software for hospital systems. And I got into the electronic shelf label project when we decided there was that there was a need for a better tracking of not a single piece inventory, but more of a bin-based inventory system. So this is where instead of tagging products by the each, we were keeping labels that displayed a bin or a collection of products. So we got these electronic shelf labels up and running and partnered with MultiCare for our first pilot project here, and off we went.
So, Alex, why don't you tell us a little bit about the project? Like, what led you all to explore this? I mean, we've had one of your colleagues on not too long ago in a prior season, and one thing that it's kind of come across to me as I've had some of these conversations with the folks at MultiCare is you definitely look at supply chain initiatives creatively, and you have a very strong emphasis in this non-acute, non-clinical space, which is where we've had, a lot of those discussions as well. And so, I'm kind of assuming that there is something very strategic at play that's kind of led you to do these things. And so maybe just walk us through that process that brings us to this project we're going to highlight today.
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason we were led, to Guy and Lana's team at VUStat, we really just wanted to more effectively manage our supplies and use real-time data across such a huge geographic, spread. Right now, we have urgent cares. We have almost 49 in our system. Our off-campus EDs, where this technology is going in place, we have 5 currently. We'll have 6 here by the start of the summer. And at the end of the 2026, we're going to have 12. And that's across the state, not just here in the PSR region. We're talking down in Yakima, over in the Spokane area. So geographically, we need to be able to communicate and keep up with our supplies in real time.
So Alex, talk about some of the challenges that you were facing, right? Because you're managing, like you said, all these multiple freestanding, non-acute, like emergency rooms, et cetera. Like, what was the challenge? Were you doing a lot of stuff in paper? What was the human resources impact and lift? Like, talk about that a little bit.
So we have 2 team members who drive to all 5 of those sites 5 days a week. And they order, they put away. It takes about 1.5 to 2 hours worth of driving each day, on top of being there for about each site 2 hours. And in those 2 hours, they have to do a lot. They have to check in with their teams. They have to make sure that the supplies they ordered the day previously show up. And if they didn't, then they need to backtrack and figure out where those supplies came from. So in a sense, they're doing a lot of physical manual labor when a lot of our supply chain work is gearing towards like a data-driven, like where we can have automated orders, or, hey, we know this bin isn't, we're seeing so many patients, this item's going so quickly, we need to order it. We're ordering it every single day. We need to just make the bin larger. So
Alex, I'm hearing you say a couple key terms in supply chain: procurement, inventory optimization. I'm hearing you say distribution, plus the travel. Who did you have to get buy-in on your team, on your escalation to say, we're going to work with Guy, we're going to make this happen? And how did you propose it just to get acceptance? I want to back it up just a second. Like, everybody has these great ideas and we hear about it, and our listeners do too, but like getting approval to do this, sometimes you're like, what's it going to cost? And it's always about savings. But this is like economy of scale in my mind. Like, there's labor downstream you're going to save, and there might be a little bit of both from the inventory optimization. But who did you work with to get buy-in and acceptance to implement this and kick it off? And I think you're up to 6 now, so please.
Actually, what's really nice is our supply chain leaders, my one-ups and above, they're very innovative in supply chain, specifically their leadership team. So they're always, what's next? What's out there? What can we do? What can we bring to our system that's going to make our growth scalable and cost effective at the same time? With labor, with having to replace, conversions, back orders, everything like that. So what we really decided to do is approach our off-campus ED leadership, because that's where we're seeing the most growth, in a sense, not like physically locations, but just their geographic spans and time. And we came to them with the idea. They loved it. It gives them a little bit more control, in a sense, where the clinical staff will be actually doing the ordering by utilizing the electronic shelf label. And then on our end, we'll be able to still go on site, and we'll actually be able to do a little bit more where we're working with, the clinicians on site. Maybe they have a project. Currently, right now, we're working with our RT supplies to change those. So seeing, huge usage over the weekends when we're not there, to be able to see, hey, they've pressed that button, they need to order it in real time, is giving us a chance to get to the leadership and say, hey, we're seeing these trends even when we're not there. We're being able to order it for you when we're not on site, that kind of deal.
And so I want to bring in Guy on this conversation too, as the partnership and showing this successful collaboration. Guy, from start to finish, here's the proposal, here's the agreement, we move forward, now we're implementing, we're going to make it happen. Are you hand in hand at these sites, or are you looking at it virtually from the software perspective? What's your role in supporting Alex to make sure this is a true implementation and has success?
Yeah, typically I would be on the software side, so I'd be sitting at my desk, I'd be connected to everybody virtually. In this instance, we have a definite hardware component. The electronic shelf labels are little digital displays that are literally replacing the paper labels that are in front of the bins. So they're displaying all that information, whether it's the product description, a scannable QR code, a manufacturer catalog number, and those have to be installed on premise. So we've gone from being purely software to a hardware component that is very much throughout all of the supply rooms, any place there's supplies. We have to be able to meet the challenges of, what does this look like? Is the supply in a drawer? Is it on a shelf? Is it a bag of liquid? Are there 100 in the bin? Are there 12 in the bin? That sort of thing. So yes, we have the hardware component. I also have set up the software so that as we go on site, these ESLs are wirelessly connected throughout the entire hospital system. So it's not just one location, it's every geographic place that Alex is talking about, spread out across the whole state or even in other states. As long as they're all on the same system, we can talk to them. So we have the ability to walk into a room. We can change the color of that label so that we can see if somebody has pressed a button on it, and to indicate that it's under par, the screen changes. We change the color of the screen so people immediately know, hey, this item is on order. I don't have to worry about it. If the item has been back ordered, discontinued, or recalled, we also have specialized screens for those. We can put up, instead of the product information of the product in the bin, we can put up a substitute product. So here's the product that you should use instead of this one. So the clinicians can walk in, notice something's under par, press a button, indicate to supply chain, we need to order this thing. Somebody comes in to replace it. They fill up the bin. They press the button, say, okay, now we're above par again. So...
All right, Guy, let me just jump in there and ask that question for clarification purposes. So you've got a supply room full of supplies, a lot of bins, a lot of different things. So each bin, there's not scales, there's an actual label, electronic label. And every time that nurse Susie pulls something out, she would hit the button to indicate one less?
Not necessarily. We can do that, but that's not what we're doing in this instance. We are using, it's more like a Kanban system. So on the label, it says this item, the par on this item is 20. And if you look in the bin and you see that it's, less than half, press the button, please. So it's a little bit subjective in that regard, but it's more like a Kanban system where here's the full, here's half. When you get half, press it, please.
So, Alex, Guy just said something that was really important, which is the fact that, you can have those substitutes already ready. How did you sort of go through the process of identifying those substitutes? And like, to me, there just seems to be some data set management, or were you able to plug into like an ERP that already has substitutes, kind of outlined? Like, how did you get that data established for all of these emergency rooms?
For substituting items, our team actually has a risk and resiliency team in place. And what they do is they identify key items for places like the emergency rooms and the ORs on site that have a higher use, or, hey, there's a natural disaster here, war here, shipping issues here. And so they go through and they identify those items, they assign them a comparable substitute item, and that's just driven from our ERP that's already in site there through either Workday, or we have another list of data on our Power BI database that we use too.
We have an integration with their ERP system with Workday, so that if that item comes through and it has been marked as discontinued or back ordered, if they have put a substitute item. They've marked a substitute item, so that gets immediately put on the label. If that didn't happen, we also have a way for Alex and her team to use either a mobile device or a computer to make that entry in the data, hit go, it communicates it immediately into the ERP system, and the labels get updated.
So that's an important part of it, and part of the reason I asked that question is, if it's something that you have to continue to manually update in two different areas, that can not necessarily be sustainable for the supply chain team, right? Like, you have these two people that were running around and spending 25% of their time on the road, and then you're just shifting them to making sure that they're manually updating substitutes and things like that. So it's great to hear that there's an integration, so that it makes it a lot more sustainable, that wherever you're already managing that, it's just feeding the system. And speaking of like making sure that these improvements were sustainable, Alex, what other kinds of things, like once you got through the initial setup and you got the training and all that, like, how are you set up for success for your team to just kind of take the lead on this and make sure that it continues its efficacy throughout?
So reallocating those two team members is a big part of it. They've gone from, instead of daily driving back and forth, they'll be managing actual like product that's in the PARs, from, making sure expiration dates are up to date versus trying to, like, again, going back to project work with any of the clinicians online, with any type of crash carts they want to create or any new products they want to work with, they can work on getting that set up with our vendors instead of just, like I said, driving back and forth.
So they're working strategically.
Correct.
To do more process improvements versus sustaining the operation.
Alex, I have to think that as people listen to this, there's a lot of people that have the same issue, right? You might have, you're a flagship hospital, but you've got a bunch of either clinics and or smaller critical access hospitals out there, so that they have the same issue, the same problem. How hard was this, if you put it in perspective, of 1 to 10 to actually implement and those type of things? Kind of give us a feel for that.
I'd say to actually implement it was probably a 4 or 5. It wasn't that hard. The hardest part is just getting, in healthcare, getting everybody on the same page with, IST, supply chain, the on-site leaders for our non-acute sites, just making sure everybody's aware of what the project is and the importance and how it is going to be built out to be, like you said, sustainable, and it's actually scalable too for new sites coming on.
That's interesting, because that 4 or 5 is generally what people rate Gary is a 4 or 5. So it's
room to grow, Hayes. Always a lot of humbleness on my part, a lot of humility.
I was trying to set the bar low so that I could, always try to come up a little bit and surprise them once in a while. If you're a 10 all the time, Hayes, that's a lot of pressure to sustain a 10.
It's hard for Hayes to get through the door. I mean, that head is just, I don't know how he gets through the door sometimes, but God bless him. God bless him.
We digress.
We do digress. But so, Alex, I got a question for you and Guy. How are you measuring the efficacy? How are you auditing it? We call them SLAs or KPIs or post-implementation. Are you doing qualitative and quantitative, or how are you measuring that?
So from our standpoint, just continuing to go through the data, reviewing the dashboard. I wouldn't necessarily say we're, doing anything out of the ordinary besides.
And maybe just to say, Justin talked about, your two people running around all over the place. We know that's shrunk, and now they have a different focus measure where they can be laser pointed in to make sure inventory optimization is better and things are better moving forward. So they're actually sitting at a desk and not driving, right? So that's one, right? That's one opportunity that's already offered more bandwidth, I guess, to that employee, right?
Yep. And then also the opportunity when they're actually on site, they're not running around doing two different things. They're actually focused on whatever project is set forth by that on-site leadership.
And Alex, I'm thinking about, Guy was talking about, pushing the button when the bin looks like it's empty and needs to be replaced. Like when we used to go count inventory, it's like you go through every single one. Maybe you had a workstation on wheels and you scanned it and you looked at it and you're like, okay, min max levels is this. Now it's like they're laser focused to go to that particular spot. Is that correct? Where they go to that and it's like, this is the one that has to be replaced, and then they order. Is that how that works?
Yes and no. It's more about taking the actual process from going from bin to bin, scanning it, reducing that time by over half. So it allows them to really do more. And then also from a clinical standpoint, say we're not there, it's after hours, our work hours, or it's on the weekend. They've had a huge surge. These sites see 100 to 150 people a day with only 10 rooms. So they're turning and burning people out. It like I said, like, hey, maybe we need to adjust that bin. Maybe it needs to hold a whole case instead of 2 boxes. Yeah.
What about stockouts? Like Gary was talking about, how are you measuring it? But I got to think stockouts is an area that you might have run into. Like, again, it's a manual effort. Maybe their schedule gets tight. All of a sudden there's weather, which does happen, and then their route's disrupted. Like, I got to think that there are just things that are out of your control, that are environmental, literally, that probably left you vulnerable to stockouts. And now, because maybe they were going to one site a couple of times a week or whatever, because you have this like real-time visibility, like did you have an issue with stockouts before? And did you see an improvement?
So post-COVID, I like to say stockouts, back orders, everything is that is always a topic of, hot conversation. So, and able to clearly, I communicate that with our clinicians on site when we're not there. We're able to actually mark, hey, this is on back order. And whether we're able to get them a substitute or not, at least they're able to visually see like, hey, I'm not going to be able to get this item for a while. So at least communicates, with them that we're not able to get this right now. So please, use your MacGyver magic and let's try and figure something else out. Or that alerts us to like, hey, this has been on back order for like 3 weeks now. Do we have an updated ETA when we're able to get this item back?
Perception is reality. And the truth is, I think clinicians, obviously since the pandemic, because of the things that you described, have become maybe more, not only more aware, but even more considerate of supply chain challenges. But at the same time, they don't necessarily know the status. And so to your point, for them to be able to see that it's on back order and maybe there isn't a substitute, like you're dispelling the myth of incompetence in the supply chain. Because if in the past they would go up and look at those bins and see no supplies, they felt like the 2 route drivers didn't know what they were doing. They didn't understand the underlying cause for it. I feel like there's an element of this communication and visibility to the true reality that is probably building confidence in your supply chain. At the same time, it's addressing a lot of other issues by building confidence through reliability. But it's 2-prong is the way I'm reading it. Guy, would you add anything, kind of to the importance of that, how much that visual can impact people's perception of supply chain?
Yeah, we noticed right away that people would come in and they would say, normally I would see this and I would go and report it and tell somebody, or whatever process they had to go through to make sure this was on order. They don't have to do that anymore. They know it's already been done. If somebody's marked it under par, it's already on order, and that's that. They don't have to do it, and they feel confident in the system. And the more experience we have with it was marked as under par, and sure enough, the next day the product showed up, the more confidence they get, the more they trust that system. So...
Did you say, Guy, early on, this is a Wi-Fi based application?
It is. It is. They're all wirelessly connected through a technology very similar to Wi-Fi. It's 2.4 gigahertz. A single antenna can cover many hundreds of labels. They all talk in communication back to the system every day, update their status, update their battery levels, their health, and all that sort of thing. And communication back and forth. If we walk into a system, into a room, for instance, and we don't know what a product is, we can use the software to say, show me this product, and there's a little LED light on the label that will start blinking. So they immediately see, hey, they walk into the room, here's my product. It's over there, it's blinking right now. So that, again, was something that helps tremendously with the clinician buy-in. This is a tool that really helps them find their products. They can see the value in it besides the consistency of supply.
So Alex and Guy, you both have talked about how it works well within the supply chain group and your operations team and also with the clinicians. So, it seems like it's a synergistic trust that you're building amongst the two and making it better. I wonder if you have a really good story you can share that you might be able to share with our listeners that talks about this anecdotally. And that's a giant word Justin uses. I just want you to tell us a story, please. So thank you.
Sure. So one of the experiences that I've got to witness is new staff coming on site, which can be scary for a lot of clinicians. A lot of them are either green, new to healthcare, or they're just a transfer nurse, not just a transfer nurse, but, a nurse, or even, again, with COVID, we have travel nurses also that are they go from site to site. They're there for 2 weeks and then they're there for 2 months, it just depends. So what we've really enjoyed is, how clearly going in and seeing their excitement. Hey, these are clearly labeled. It uses like the e-ink, almost like a Kindle. You can see things clearly. Things can be color coded. For this story example, we couldn't find a catheter connector. It's a very small bit. Had no idea where it is because it just couldn't, you're looking at this giant wall of bins and supplies. It gets overwhelming. She came to me, she's like, can you help me find this? I said, what is it called? We were able to actually search by text in our VUEMED software that Guy's created, typed in catheter cap, boom, it popped right up. We blinked it. And it was right in like the far corner. I like to call it like the unknown zone in a sense. And it wasn't even with the catheter items where you think it would be. So we took that opportunity to work with staff to redo our actual catheter section because that's a high item in emergency rooms. So we took that, and then from being able just to use that experience, it was great because now, like I said, we're moving on to our RT where we're actually clearly labeling things for new nurses or travel nurses that come in. They can just see the size. They visually know what the item is more than a supply chain person where we're very number oriented. I need that reference number. I need my workday number, where they're like, I need the blue doohickey with the yellow cap. They can see it, but now we can actually put it in the right area. So, and that's a direct quote from a nurse, actually. I got one today.
We found while we were doing the installation that what Alex touched on, we had travel nurses coming through that worked somewhere else within the MultiCare system. It wasn't that they were coming from without, but they would say, I don't know it by that name. It was a different manufacturer last month. It was in a different packaging. If we can call it a doohickey, if we can give a nickname to this thing and literally call it a doohickey, it doesn't matter where they are. They can go to any MultiCare system in the state and they can ask for a doohickey and make it flash, and it will.
All right. As I sit here and listen to this, I'm imagining, would it be great if I had like my wife's grocery list on an iPad? I walk in and it starts telling me where everything is, blinking it, says, it's down here. This is what she wants. That's what we need, Guy. There's a bigger market. Anyway, I digress again. Alex, where is this going to go? How far are y'all going to roll this out in your system, and kind of where you are in those plans?
So we'd really like to be able to roll it out to our urgent cares as well as our advanced primary cares, our primary cares, our Mary Bridge clinics. The trend really is, with the upcoming generations to be non-acute centric. Nobody wants to go to the hospital anymore. We think our parents are going to go to the hospital. You think not great things. But if you want to go to a great, retail or health urgent care setting, that's where healthcare is really, I think, geared to go even stronger than it is now. So that's the limit right there.
Well, great story, and we do love highlighting collaboration because I feel like we got some serious challenges in healthcare. We're only going to solve them by all working together, and so it's always great to have everybody kind of come together and talk about how they've been able to make an implementation work, bring in a new technology, get adoption, and then I think that how you keep it going with limited effort is a really important part of the adoption. Like there's a lot of transformational things you can do, but if you have to continue to put in the same amount of effort to maintain it, it's hard to go on and do other strategic initiatives or grow the program within a large health system like yours, Alex. So I want to really thank you both for coming on and talking about all the key aspects of this project that you've done together. Guy, I'll kind of start with you as we're wrapping up, but just anything you want to add before the end here?
No, MultiCare has been a great partner to work with. Alex has been fabulous. Can't say enough good about her. It's really nice to work with someone who, instead of being opposed to change, they embrace it. And they understand, and we made it very clear from the beginning, we will make this work for you. How do you want to see it? What can I do for you to make this work? And vice versa. Alex did the same for me. What can I do to make this work better? So no, it's been a great experience working with them and working with Alex in particular.
Well, Alex, that's high praise, but I'm not surprised. Like I said, you have a colleague who said, hey, if you liked my episode, you got to talk to Alex. You'll like hers even better. And so here we are today. But Alex, anything you feel like maybe we missed in the conversation or that you think should be emphasized before we let you go?
Well, first and foremost, appreciate everybody here. And I really, truly appreciate the collaboration with Guy and Lana. This has been one of those projects that you didn't know where it was going to go and where the capabilities can go with it. It's just been endless, and it's been nice to be able to work with that. But I think what's important is the story is that, the sites that we're trying to service from a supply chain standpoint are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, full trauma, go of illness and injury. Basically, they're there to, support our communities. So it's important that we continue to come up with these great ideas that make supporting the people that support our communities, make their jobs even easier in a sense. So,
yeah, and have them spending their time more wisely, efficiently, and on strategy and what's next versus, driving around. I'm sure they live happier lives as a result as well and feel a lot more fulfilled in their role with MultiCare. And so what a great story. All right, that was Alex VandenBroek, Supply Chain Operations Manager at MultiCare, Guy Russell, Director of Product Development at VUEMED, talking about an innovative way to manage supplies. But really, Gary, for me, the heart of this conversation is deploying our human resources, which are very limited in today's day and age, and utilizing them more strategically at the top of their ability versus, being behind the wheel, which really doesn't bring a lot of value to the organization. And I can't imagine brings a lot of intrinsic value to them in their day-to-day jobs. So now they're focused on, how do we do this other places? How do we maybe broaden application? Like that is a huge role shift. And when you have people that are just looking to get a start, but want to make a career out of supply chain, making these kinds of changes are how you keep people on your roster to eventually do great things.
Yeah, Justin, I think you said it. It was strategic. When we go back and look at our current state of supply chain, what are we doing right now that we could do better? And this is this opportunity to, make it a consistent, sustainable movement forward. It works well here, as she talked about, as Alex talked about in the ED. How does it look like going into the urgent care? Where's the next step? And this thing is continually learning. So not only are you helping supply chain, but you're also getting the clinical team on board as well with that trust that it's working well. So it's a plug-and-play model that seems to be going well, and it's a definite direction in reducing the economy of scale, which balances the fiduciary responsibility while supporting the mission.
Oh, closing line on the mission. I know Hayes somewhere is, well, actually, he's right on here. He's just not joining us for the outro, but he's loving it. He's loving it, everybody. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Power Supply. On behalf of Gary Hayes and myself, thanks for listening to this week's episode. We'll catch you next week.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Power Supply. As a reminder, you can help support us by subscribing on your favorite podcast app or by downloading the smartphone app on your iPhone or Android. Simply search for Power Supply in the App Store or Google Play. The best thing about downloading the smartphone app is that you can access bonus content for certain episodes and view episodes in certain categories, like articles on the go and vendor spotlights. Are you following us on LinkedIn or Facebook yet? If you are and you love an episode or post, then let your social network know about it. Like, comment, or share our posts along with your thoughts and keep the conversation going. If you have any topics or guests that you would like to recommend for a future episode, just send us an email to info@powersupplymedia.net. We look forward to hearing from you.